Hey guys, and welcome to this video on the new moon in Pisces that happens on the 10th of March 2024. Thanks for joining me. It's a pleasure to be with you today. The chart you see next to me here, that's a snapshot of the sky at the moment this new moon will take place. I'm going to analyze this chart to see how the planets interact and what energy they create amongst themselves. And the thinking behind these horoscopes is to try and get a sense of that energy to see how it'll influence us. So once I've done that, I'll go through each sign of the zodiac from Aries through to Pisces to give you an idea of what area of your life specifically this is going to show up in. So I'm based in Central Europe. I look at these via Central European time. This happens on the 10th of March at 10 in the morning, and that's 10 on the dot. So a new moon and a full moon, I always mention this, but I feel they're like 3-day events. So you'll be able to tap into this on the 9th, 10th and 11th of March. And also in terms of time zones, if you're west of Europe, then it'll happen earlier in the morning on the 10th of March. And if you're east of Europe, then this new moon in Pisces will take place in the afternoon on the 10th. Okay, so a new moon is when the sun and moon conjunct. The moon goes pitch black, and as far as I'm concerned, it kind of says, do you know what, I'm taking a break here. Before I rush off on my next cycle, I'm going to get my bearings. I'm going to have a look at what I want to spend my time doing, what I want to use my energy on. So a new moon is a wonderful time to kind of set intentions, to plant new seeds and to watch them grow. If you have a new moon in your birth chart, it's associated with the energy of the pioneer, the person who thinks outside of the box, the person who uses their own energy to lead and to champion things and to move things forward. So it's interesting with this new moon that it's a bit of a contradiction because it is a new moon, so it's pulling all this Pisces energy in. But Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. It's a water sign that's very focused on the spiritual side of things, about tying up loose ends in a practical way and kind of getting ready for the next journey. Pisces is associated with the arts, with healing, with creativity, with music, with connections, both with other people and a connection to the higher realms. So this new moon is saying, okay, I'm going to pull all this energy in to get started again. But because it's pulling in this Pisces energy, it's much more about, I'm going to go on a spiritual mission for the next 28 days. So I think you're galloping off into the realms of spirit here. And not only that, it's at 20 degrees. That reduces to 2 in numerology, and 2 is about cooperation and relationships. So this is a very wise and profound new moon in Pisces. So I'm going to try and do it justice here. But it really, I feel, it gives you a sense that this is what's truly important to me, and I'm able to figure out what I need in truth, in earnest, what's really important, and what I think I want. And I think you get very serious about where you're at in life, and you look around and you say, what genuinely nurtures me and what only appears to nurture me. So you get very clear on what you love, what you can lean on, kind of who you can count on. And what you're also able to do is to recognize the things in your life that don't work or that no longer work. And it allows you to look at those things without the intense emotional connection that at other times would keep you locked into that dynamic or relationship. So I feel that this is a real moment of coming home to the self and recognizing what is good and helpful in earnest and what really isn't. And it's a great time to take stock. And it's more than a regular new moon, I feel, because it's in Pisces. It kind of says, you know what, before you tackle the rest of the year, make sure that you're using your energy in ways which are nurturing and helpful and are looking at the bigger picture, not just the short-term thrills or whatever it may be. Okay, so we've got the new moon at 20 degrees in Pisces. It then creates relationships with other things in the chart. So the first thing is this giant opposition between the new moon in Pisces and Black Moon Lilith at 17 degrees in Virgo. And if you look at this chart, if you kind of zoom out a little bit, you'll see that it appears that a lot of things are pointing at that Black Moon Lilith in Virgo. So to me, that gives it added significance. And this is really a strong tendency to criticize, but not in a way that's actually constructive and helpful. It's a way of being overly demanding of the self, to the point where it becomes difficult to take any action, because as soon as it's taken, a pile of criticism is kind of dumped on top of it. So what I feel is, with all this amazing amount of Pisces energy being pulled into this new moon, there's a sense that the scales are kind of changing, and you're able to find a place of acceptance around things that you usually would nitpick. And I feel that's mainly because of the amazing overview that Pisces gives you, which always looks at the big picture, right? It's not interested in instant gratification or what every detail is. It's much more interested in the journey as a whole. So with the new moon in Pisces, you're going to feel this innate sense of connection with yourself, with the higher realms, with your feelings, with your own instincts, your gut. And you'll be able to see things in your own life where you are the block, where you stand in your own way, where you don't give yourself permission, or where you don't feel you're confident enough, or where you feel like, I can't take this action independently, I need someone to validate my ideas or my decisions. So on the one side, we've got all of this kind of peaceful, accepting, kind of forgiving energy coming in, and then we've got a face-off with the Black Moon Lilith in Virgo. Those two are on the same axis always in the traditional chart, right? They're always going to be across from each other. So Pisces is this water sign that's interested in letting go of control, and Virgo is the opposite. Virgo says, I'm a physical being first and foremost, and I need to make sure everything is perfect and right and organized so that I ensure my survival, I suppose. So I'm going to do that in the most healthful way I can. I'm going to keep score of everything, and it means well, but it's not particularly fun, and it's not particularly kind of adaptable. It likes to take charge of what's happening in order for a sense of security to be gained from all of these things. Now, of course, we can create a healthy environment in our own kind of bodies through a good diet, drinking lots of water and exercising and stuff, right? But you could also argue that focusing on the spiritual side of things is, even though it may not seem as present because it's invisible, right? It's ethereal. It is where you exist eternally, whereas your physical body is finite. No matter how healthy you make it or how much you try and control it, sooner or later things will get outside of your control. So this new moon really reminds you that regardless of your physical body or your environment or the people in your life or what is possible and what isn't, is really only one version of reality, and you're able to tap into yourself spiritually. And this is where I'm going to try and do a justice, because it's almost like you're able to discover your spiritual body and either jump into it or have a discussion with it, or truly connect with what is real for you right now, rather than some sort of acquired notion of what ought to be or what is possible. So you see, you remember yourself as you truly are on a spiritual level, and that is beyond, citizenship, what country you belong to. It's beyond your immediate environment. It's beyond your job. So if you feel that life has got a little busy and you've kind of lost yourself in the process, or you've forgotten about what your real wants and needs are, you're going to be very surprised at how clear that becomes on this day. What's also interesting then is we have Neptune sitting on top of the new moon. Neptune is the water planet of dreams and intuition. And if I'm looking at your birth chart, right, I always look at the relationship between the Sun and Neptune. If the Sun and Neptune, and I think I've mentioned this before, so excuse me if you've heard this before, but if the Sun and Neptune oppose each other, then I feel that person is very intuitive, but the intuition always feels foreign and almost alien. If it's squared, the Sun and Neptune square each other, like in my chart, then the intuition is there, but it's a negotiation, right? That's why I use these divination tools like astrology, the tarot. If it's right on top of the Sun like this, and remember the Sun is your identity, right? It's what you're striving towards. Oh, and I haven't even mentioned this, but the Moon is your heart, the way you feel. So those two conjuncting means that there's great dialogue and conversation between your heart and your head, and that you can trust your insights that you're getting around this time. But now that we've got Neptune sitting on top of it, it means that that person is incredibly intuitive, but that it's something that's so ingrained that you may not even notice it. And Neptune can also kind of represent the fog or a sense of vagueness or a lack of clarity. So it's almost like there's a foggy sense of self that feels like it's blurry, like it's out of focus. So the kind of image I'm getting is that you're able to get yourself back into focus by connecting with your own feeling, your own gut, your own instinct. And it kind of brings you back into this realm, so to speak, the way you want to be in it. So think of a film, right? Like if you're watching a film and there's a blur button or knob or something. I don't think there is, but maybe there is on some devices. So you're watching the film go by, then you turn the button and everything goes blurry. The story continues, but you can't really see what's going on. You can barely make it out. And then it's coming out of the blur, turning the button again and bringing everything into sharp focus again. So what is the purpose and point of that, right? I think if you're like using video editing software, I'm sure you can blur things, but I don't think it's something that's done unless it's like a transition, like a blur from one shot to the next. So you're able to stop the train, so to speak. You're able to hit pause or blur in this case, and you're able to rearrange everything while it's paused so that when you press the play button again, it speeds off in the direction you want it to go. That's the feeling I get around this new moon in Pisces, that someone hands you a magnifying glass and says, here you go, look, take a look at yourself. So there are lots of things that can make us feel lost in life, right? Like I've had a horrible breakup or a heartbreak. I don't know what to do with myself anymore. This job that I loved so much, I was made redundant and now I can't do this job, and what else am I supposed to do? You know, that feeling of the rug's being pulled out from under you and you have to suddenly pull something out of the air and you don't even know where to begin. So anyone who's in that kind of position, this is really, really supportive, because not only will you be able to pull something out of the air and say, okay, this is the next step forward then, but it's also something that is completely aligned with who you truly are, because this new moon in Pisces is also on a certain level enough with the misinformation, okay? I want you to get back to the root level of who you are and to grow from there. And if things haven't worked out in the past, then that's fine, we'll leave them over there, but now we're growing in a new direction. We also have Mercury nearby. Mercury is technically, well, it is 10 degrees away. It's in Aries at 0 degrees. Mercury is the communication planet. And in Aries, it's as willful as the little ram, right? It wants to express its own message, its own point of view. It wants to understand. It wants to acquire the knowledge that it needs. It wants to express knowledge that is being created. In Aries, it's not subtle. It's not quiet. It's really all systems go. So Mercury being the communication planet, I feel this new moon is like the information is coming in via your intuition, via your feelings, amplified by Neptune and the magnifying glass, right? And it's like click, as soon as the information is there, Mercury jumps on its chariot and wants to rush off. So this will give you an amazing perspective and a moment of clarity. And I don't think that clarity comes from others at all. I think it comes from your connection to yourself and to something bigger. I'm just questioning myself as I'm saying that. Could it happen via other people? Yeah, I think so, but it's not so much about the relationship. I think it's more about the information that's being exchanged. If you look to the other side of Neptune and Mercury in the chart, you'll see that Venus and Mars are sitting 8 degrees away from each other. They're not necessarily or directly at all connected to the moon, but they do show up here, and they are conjunct. So Mars is the masculine, the male principle. This is what I want. This is what I'm not going to compromise on. Venus is the feminine. It's the creative. It's the loving. It's the new, what can be given life to. And when those two combine, usually something happens, like something new begins. And they're in Aquarius. So it's a new idea about yourself and your life that's taking root here. And I really feel that you see yourself as clearly as you haven't in a long time or ever. And also, if you've been exposed to like negative ways of thinking, or you've been like, you feel like you've adopted someone else's way of thinking or pursuing things that isn't you. It's a great opportunity to detox this and to let go of it. I mean, that's the kind of thing that makes me think of these nefarious organizations, groups, you know, like these groups where they indoctrinate people. But just from my own experience, I was thinking about this morning in the shower, actually. When I was in my early 20s, I was visiting a relative and I looked at the books in the bookshelf and I read one. And this book, I was so fascinated by it, but the ideology in the book was like really poisonous. And it really, you know, it was one of those things where it was like, I can't unread this or I can't unsee it. So what do I do with it? And that's what this kind of new moon in Pisces is about, where you can detox the stuff that is faulty, that is no longer relevant, that is toxic, that is negative, all of that stuff. Identify it and you're able to wash it away. And then you're able to pick a new goal in future that is actually healthy and focused on the big picture and you feeling good in the long run. So this is like a new moon in Pisces, is like the star in the tarot. Wash away everything else, be authentic and let your light shine in a way. But also I feel it's the ability to transcend the self and parts of the self that are unable to let go. For me, that's been things like addiction, where you've wanted to stop but you couldn't, where you felt like you weren't in control of your own self. And to recognize that rather than to try and integrate it in some way, but to recognize it and say, this is no bueno. This is not manageable in the long run. This is not something that's going to help me. You know, those kind of recognition or moments of truth, especially when it comes to the self, they're not particularly pleasant. But that's where I feel the inner work really is useful and purposeful. Like, for instance, if I'm questioning my relationships, why don't my relationships work, right? And I get to a moment in my life where I realize that, for instance, as an example, I'm incredibly abrasive and rude. Then it's not going to be like a fun recognition. Oh, this is okay. It's not going to be the greatest, but to have the, like, you know, grit to say, okay, I recognize this within myself. Now that I can tolerate this new information and sit with it for a second, I can do something about it. So it's growth, the opportunity for growth. I love it. Okay, so let's see what the new moon, the other relationships it forms. So I've mentioned the opposition with Black Moon Lilith. Then we have, it forms a T-square with Black Moon Lilith. So we've got that opposition, 180 degrees between the new moon and Black Moon Lilith. Then a square going from the new moon to the rising in Gemini, so 90 degrees away from that. And then the rising in Gemini squares back to Black Moon Lilith, and that's why we have this kind of red triangle. And that's an area of friction, unresolved friction. And often the two squares, what that lands on is said, that's where the energy peaks, or that's like a volcano, that's where it can come out the top, right? And Gemini is ruled by Mercury, the communication planet, and it's at 19 degrees. So the only thing not to do, I feel, is to put your head in the sand deliberately and to say, I don't want to hear anything that comes up for me that's difficult right now. I just want to relax. I don't want to be bothered. I don't want to do any inner work or soul searching. Thank you very much. That could create extra friction, because then it'll come out the sides in a way, you know? So with that then, if you're not using it, I would say you may be looking at things which are very intimate and personal for yourself. Think about who you want to share that with, and if you want to share all of it, or whether keeping it to yourself is actually a space where you can work with it. And this is, tricky. This is a tricky sentence, because what I mean is it's better to have a chat with yourself rather than with someone else and then blurt out things that the other person may not even be listening to. Then it's kind of wasted insights, you know? Or even if they are listening to you, then you're giving your power away in a sense of what's your opinion on all of this and what do you think, rather than coming up with the meaning yourself, which I think this is what the new moon in Pisces here is all about. You know, another image that's coming to mind is not just the star in the tarot, but also the hermit. This older person who's cloaked in brown, so life has touched him, right? And he's got his lantern and he's looking for answers and meaning. And he's older, his entire life, he's been on this journey to try and discover things and to find things out. So, you know, that's the weird dichotomy between a lot of this. A lot of us go on a journey to find ourselves, right? The problem is that sometimes we find things that we don't particularly like. So that doesn't mean stop the journey, but I think there's real strength in finding those things that you aren't so thrilled about, and to have the resilience to do something with those. I think that's growth is better than perfection. I think I have a lot more connection with that kind of process than someone who has got no character flaws or everything's just gone perfectly. Because I think it's when the chips are down, that's when people really shine, or that's when you really learn about yourself, when you face those uncomfortable truths. But again, you know, that's why I said at the beginning of this is a new moon in Pisces that's very wise and all-encompassing, and it kind of looks at you as a unit. So think of yourself as being in a bubble and floating through life in that bubble. Okay, let's see what else. Okay, so we've got the T-square. Then we also have a semi-square between the new moon in Pisces and Jupiter in Taurus. And Jupiter in Taurus is sitting next to Uranus in Taurus. They're 7 degrees away from each other. So Jupiter is the planet of good luck, good fortune. At 12 degrees in Taurus, it's very, it sends lots of positive vibes your way when it comes to actual practical actions. So it's kind of like a story now. Like when you look at these inner truths and you set new goals as a result of them, Jupiter is immediately there rolling out the red carpet saying, here's your path, madam or sir. Thank you for deciding on this new mission in life, and here you go, we've been expecting you. Uranus is at 19 degrees in Taurus, and that's the promise of, if I take action based on what's meaningful to me, any wonderful thing can happen. It's like a nail biter. So there's this major sense of anticipation, and it's justified, because whatever area you use this on, whether to overcome your own kind of unattainable standards within yourself, or you've got rid of the vagueness, it's really like you arriving at a moment of clarity, and then that leads to very straightforward action. What else have we got? We have got a sextile between the moon, the new moon in Pisces, and Uranus in Taurus. So it blends its energy with Uranus, and there's more friction with Jupiter. So I really feel that if you're going to think outside of the box and really be true to yourself, then it's that willingness to do something that you care about and that may not be validated by others. That's what allows you to bump into good opportunities, I feel, because other people will respond to what you've come up with in a positive way. Okay, let's see what else. We've got a yod in the chart, so I just want to look at that. A yod is also known as the finger of God. It's these two green quincunxes, the green lines. They're connected at the bottom by a sextile, and they look like the finger of God, right? And it's a quality in a birth chart that's very unique to that person. So here we've got a quality that's very unique to this new moon in Pisces. So it connects the North Node in Aries next to Chiron in Aries. It sextiles Mars in Aquarius and the midheaven in Aquarius. And then they peak via these two quincunxes to Black Moon Lilith in Virgo. Okay, so the tendency to not take action because you've crushed yourself with self-criticism, that's out the window. And then on the other side, it's an unwillingness to go over the past or to berate yourself. And it's like, no, thank you. I'm clicking the off button. I'm looking at new ideas for the future. Thank you. It's very decisive. Yeah. So, I did a program years ago about, living in the past or living in the present or living in the future. And if you think of it in terms of different settings or modes, it's really true. We do go from the past to the future, into the moment, and then in the future again. And I feel the best place to occupy is the present, with some sort of recognition of the past, or at least a willingness to learn from it, But the main focus then, yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. Where is it best to operate, and where is it best to try and remain throughout the day or in your life? Past mode, present mode, or future mode? Let me know. Okay, anything else? We've got a grand trine in the chart, which then becomes a kite. Okay, so a grand trine in your natal chart is going to be an area of real talent, right? Because three blue trines connect to create this big blue triangle, and the trines are aspects where energies blend themselves together harmoniously. So we've got a grand trine in air. It connects Mars in the midheaven in Aquarius with the rising in Gemini, and then the south node in Libra. So the big talent is air, it's communication, it's ideas, it's being able to see clearly. So it underpins all of these things that I mentioned with the new moon in Pisces. But then the peak, 2 sextiles on top of one side of the big blue triangle. We've got the north node in Aries at 17 degrees. Again, in your birth chart, the south and north node, they show me where you're coming from on a spiritual level and the direction you're moving into, right? And where we're moving into via this new moon in Pisces, or where I would like you to look, is I want to rediscover my strength here to set a new goal for the future. And the outcome is going to be much more healing than things in the past, but it's also much more about empowering myself and living in the moment and being joyful and happy, and moving away from things which are not joyful and not happy and things like that I tolerate. Am I still going to tolerate these things? And it really puts the ball in your court in the sense of, certain things in your life are happening because you allow them to be there or to take up space, which I don't think is some sort of great insight. And I don't think that's no, it is in a sense, because you know what I said earlier, where, like, for instance, with addiction, where you do feel powerless, this is a moment where you can reclaim your own power and do something differently moving forward. Okay, anything else? Let me see. So we've got the yod, got the grand trine and the kite. Yeah, and that's it. What are the other things doing? Saturn is at 11 degrees in Pisces. It's 9 degrees away from the new moon in Pisces. So I think this is the nice solid foundation which gives you the patience and the ability to sit with these uncomfortable feelings so that you can learn from them. Pluto's in Aquarius, so new ideas. Let's make things better for you. Let's get rid of faulty beliefs so that the road is a little smoother. Let's get rid of these speed bumps. And then the North Node in Chiron. Chiron is the wounded healer. So all of this is about you being more empowered and healing past wounds and lightening the load as you move forward. That's why you have this nice overview, because it's like, okay, we've come back into focus. That's where we're heading. I like that, like those kind of moments in life where you're like so sure of what you're doing. It's kind of like you tap into the flow of something bigger and you're just riding it, rather than doubting yourself all the time. Okay, so let's see what this new moon is about for each one of the signs. So Aries, ask yourself, what can I heal in myself? And really the question, what do I need versus what do I want? That is likely to become a real theme for you, and you'll be able to make crystal clear decisions on what's maybe a luxury or not as necessary, and what's truly helpful in your life. So you're looking at the big picture. You've got a stable, healing, kind of consistent image in your mind that you can create. So also ask, what do I do currently that promises healing but provides the opposite? So you're not just able to decipher what's important or what isn't, but you're also able to look at toxic relationships in your life, whether it's with a person or a substance, and to see whether it is actually helpful or not. So you take that to a very kind of detailed level. Taurus, focus on your hopes and dreams and how you can realize them through your work. You'll see how you can make changes and what changes to make to facilitate this. So the focus and the truth-seeking detector kind of thing, you're really able to gain some truths, comfortable or uncomfortable, in your working life, and you'll know what to do about them once they've been revealed to you. Gemini, so be willing to change, Taurus. Gemini, You'll be asking, what do I need to learn in order to bridge the gap between where I am now and where I want to be in future? So for you, Gemini, this new moon in Pisces is a chance to build total self-reliance and independence. Cancer. You may get a very specific idea around starting your own spiritually based business. The ideas you get around that are really valuable, so pay attention to those if you can, and also listen for ideas that are around charity or any kind of charitable causes. The clarity to see where you're not appreciated and how you could redirect your energy is also going to come up. So for you, it's also this process of letting go of what doesn't work and focusing more on what you would like to work in your life and in future. Leo, you have the opportunity to let go of limiting beliefs when it comes to money, and at the same time, the opportunity to start something new that reflects your current interests. And also, I've put a note here when it comes to spiritual beliefs around money. There's so many spiritually based books on that. So The Abundance Plan by John Randolph Price. We've got things like The Secret. So if you feel, Leo, that your relationship to money or your perception of money is a little off, consider those two books, but also that whole kind of topic, and look around. There's some really useful ideas floating around in that realm. Virgo, you have the opportunity to look more outwards than inwards, to make big changes without too much inner scrutiny or pressure. So there's a sense of, I can just do it. I don't have to overthink everything. You have a positive relationship with taking action, and you have the opportunity to let go of procrastination and rumination. Libra, you've got the opportunity to build a new, solid, and profitable business relationship, or relationships, plural. So you're going to feel the opposite of passive during this new moon. You're going to feel incredibly proactive, especially when it comes to turning things that you love into viable business ideas. Scorpio, you'll have an appreciation for all the good you have in your life at the moment and the luxury of time to enjoy it all. So whether it's people or a nice environment that you've created, you have the ability to let go of the tendency to look ahead or to where the grass seems greener, things that take you out of the present moment and put you in some sort of disconnected dream state. And instead, you're able to exist and to enjoy the present moment. So for you, this new moon in Pisces ought to feel really calming and peaceful. Sagittarius, your main focus is on who and what makes you happy in your life. You'll have zero interest in people or things that take away from your joy, and you'll have no trouble pinpointing these. Of all the signs, you have the biggest non-truth detector, alert, non-truth, lie. It's interesting because this is a new moon in Pisces, but out of all of the signs, Sagittarius, you're really the ones who take it most literally, as in, what makes me happy and what doesn't, and what am I going to do about that? And as black and white as that, which is rare, right? Capricorn, you'll be in creative mode in a very tangible way. Anything that's been neglected or abandoned that can be refurbished or kind of restored is ideal. So that kind of project you'll find really thrilling, like, taking an old birdhouse and doing it up, or taking a piece of furniture and changing it around, or painting it, or doing a distressed look, or whatever it may be. So for you to get practical in a hands-on way will be really rewarding, and that'll give you insights while you're doing that work. Aquarius, you're homeward bound during this new moon in Pisces, and you may want to isolate in order to commune with yourself, so to speak. So hermit mode, right? If you can have some time to yourself to unwind, give yourself permission to do that. You'll have a greater sense of clarity around what is going on in your life, and therefore you can plant those seeds of intention in a calm, kind of forward-looking way. So it's not always a negative thing to be by yourself and to have a little bit of time to think on your own. Pisces, you're going to be able to finally accept the nature of a toxic relationship and to see it for what it is without the emotional attachment. If you're in a tough spot where you may feel like you need a life raft, It comes in the form of being able to think with your head and not your heart this time round. And you kind of have the ability to think your way out of certain binds. You can get out of sticky situations by thinking them through. Yeah. Okay, so that's what I get for you guys. I hope that gives you an idea of what you'll be working with during this new moon. Like I told you, it is rather profound and grand in scale. So I hope that I've expressed these ideas as clearly as possible. If you would like a personal reading, and if you'd like me to look at your birth chart, I just need 3 things: your place of birth, date of birth, and time of birth. If you don't have the time of birth, then order a chart rectification with me, please. That's a process where you send me 10 or more life events and I actually work out your time of birth. So once I've got that, I have a chart in front of me like this one next to me, and I can analyze that and see, you know, when or what your vocational aptitudes are, or what's happening in your family life or in your personal relationships, hopes and dreams, friendships, spiritual development. If you're thinking of making changes by looking at the transits and the progress chart, I can really pinpoint when the best times are. And if you're questioning certain locations, even Sydney, New York, Rome, the astrocartography shows me how each area is influenced by your natal chart. So if I'm looking at the natal chart, I'm on Earth looking up. The astrocartography reverses that, and I position myself in the sky. I see how the planets are moving over different parts of the Earth when you were born, and the thinking behind that then is that each area is going to have a particular vibe for you specifically. So if you're interested in any of that, please do get in touch with me for a personal reading. I hope you have a wonderful time here during this new moon in Pisces. Check out some of my other videos, the weekly horoscopes, daily tarot reading. Yeah, have a look. Have a wonderful time, and I'll speak to you soon. All the best.